comments made after the first webinar presented on Tuesday. If you were unable to attend that webinar, please feel free to visit AIVRTech website, and you can review that in its entirety. Prior to beginning today, we did receive a few questions after Tuesday's webinar, and the burning question of the day was, the audience was really wanting to know what's behind the blankets at AIVRTech. So we'll take a moment here and take a look. Oh, wow. There you can see it's the Hopi Reservation. And I think way, way back there in the horizon, you might be able to see Dr. Lee Gesioma taking a hike in his homeland. Beautiful country. Blessed to be here today. So that's what's behind the blanket. I want to thank you all for being here this morning and for the questions and comments that were offered during the webinar. I also want to specifically thank Gail Sorensen for sending AIVRTech a great professional development plan that we will review and compare on Friday, July 15th. So thank you, Gail, for sending that. If you are logged on today, I did want to ask if we do have permission to be able to post your plan on the AIVRTech website as a downloadable form for people to view. And as a best practice, we certainly welcome these types of documents and information, and really that's what the community of practice is all about, sharing our knowledge, our resources, and our references with each other. Great, it looks like Carol responded. Yes, we can, so we thank you very much. And to the other programs that are out there with us today, please send that to us at, is it the AIVRTech?
I'll post it in the chat.
Yeah, we'll put that up in the post area, chat area, so you can have a live link. That way we can receive it directly. So thank you for that. As we go through, I want to acknowledge, kind of in a group rules setting, there's information that can be put in the comment boxes. Do want to recognize that sometimes there could be sensitive information that we really want to know, but we might be hesitant about to put it out into a group setting, maybe uncomfortable with that. We do have the capability of having an option to send a private message to AIVRTech, one that will be confidential in nature, but we do want to ensure that we have the right process in place and you understand how to do that. So I wanted to have John take a moment and just share the process to send a private chat, just in case somebody wants to message us independently outside of the group.
Thank you, Mark. To send us a private chat and to just sort of be sure to de-identify any information, you can take your cursor, and you can try this now, and slide it over in the attendees pod, the name Institute for Human Development. And what you should see is a little pop-up come up that says Start Private Chat. And then you can click on that. And then after that, you can actually do this without sending us a chat. Or you can chat other people in attendance and have a conversation on the side as well. But when you start the private chat, a new tab will show up at the bottom of the chat pod. When you click on that, any information or any comments or questions that you want to send to IHD, we'll be able to see it, and the rest of the participants on the webinar would not be able to see it. If anyone needs any other help, please give us an email at aivrtech@nau.edu, and we'll walk you through the process.
All right, we'll make sure when John's giving instructions, we try to project that out there so we can hear him accordingly. Yeah, thanks for that feedback. Okay, well, let's begin. As I'd mentioned, we want to take a chance and make sure we honor your questions and comments and your participation in the previous webinar. And so what I wanted to do was to review some of the questions that were posed during that. from which we, again, welcome your comments along the way. And really, we'll take time during today to pause to allow you to be able to answer questions or provide your feedback and comments to share with the group. I did want to begin with James Allen's question and also Mary Maruvia's comment regarding education and training towards professional development. As a reminder, James Allen had asked, do you have any professional development education recommendations, specific courses or degrees? So we had a chance to do some research, and what we came up with certainly are various courses, pathways, resources that we wanted to share with you. I want to have John put up another website. And John, that website is www.crccertification.com. So it's crccertification.com. What I wanted to do was reference this site. And one of the recommendations we would certainly make are, as you begin to explore your professional development pathway, should it include the CRC or the Certified Rehabilitation Counselor Certificate, there's going to be specific academic content areas that you're going to want to follow so that way you're meeting the coursework and education requirements necessary to qualify for the CRC. So what we've done is we've actually put up the CRC guidebook towards credentialing. That's one of your downloadable forms that are there as well. And I wanted to also point out that we did include a separate section of that guide for you to also download that details some of the specific coursework that you'd want to start taking a look at as you're moving forward to meet those education requirements. We have that in a separate form for you to be able to look at. I did want to just briefly read some of the courses that would qualify towards that certification. Some of the courses include Theories and Techniques of Counseling, Assessment, Occupational Information, Job Placement, Medical Aspects of Disabilities, Psychosocial Aspects of Disabilities, Multicultural Issues. It also includes Medical Aspects of Disabilities, Psychosocial, read that already, and also Case Management and Rehabilitation Services. And lastly, the one that we have here is Foundations of Rehabilitation Counseling. So you guys have that for your information to be able to use. I also want to reference the TVR Institute, Northwest Indian College. And John, that website we can have put up there too as www.nwic.edu. And there you can begin to search their academic coursework for the TVR certification, if you will, which is specific to American Indian Vocational Rehabilitation. They have a specific curriculum that they're developing for the AIVRS programs. So feel free to browse their website and catalog and take a look at what's upcoming as far as coursework. I certainly encourage you to contact them to find more specific information about this so you can see what type of programming they have in there. There are other avenues that you can take a look at. I just want to mention a few of them so we have them on record, which includes the Certified Rehabilitation Counselor Certification. That's an organization. Certificate of Rehabilitation Counseling. CRC through the accredited by the National Commission of Certifying Agencies, the NCAA. And also you want to keep in mind other educational opportunities may be available through your state, whether it be state coursework, state professional development pathways, and also too, I know many of you may participate in a state consortia within the tribal organizations and the state Department of Rehabilitation agencies. I can attest specifically in California, we do have an annual consortia meeting that we participate in, really identifying the training needs on an annual basis, and then we use a blueprint for success that identifies some of the education and training objectives for each of our programs, for the state to participate with us and for us to participate with the state. So those are just some of the informations related to those education questions. So thank you, James and Mary, for directing us in that direction. I also wanted to review one other question that came up regarding the IPE, Individualized Plan for Employment, and Professional Development. But it was also a comment made by Mary that basically in restating that comment, it says, "I like your comparing the Professional Development Plan to the IPE. I've often done this. However, my struggle has been actually targeting the training needs for each individual. Training conferences may or may not hit upon the needed areas." And again, want to acknowledge that comment, tailoring a professional development plan to the individual staff member based on those needs. But some recommendations, other than the ones we've just provided earlier, they may include, again, state training, may include your SILC training, the SILC, Independent Living Council training. We also want to acknowledge there's possible trainings within your tribal organizations. It could be a tribal specific training offered through your human resources program. Oftentimes they will have a management training certificate or a supervisory certificate on how to possibly complete an employee appraisal. Those are all excellent avenues to tap into locally that you may not have thought of. Certainly information could be obtained and available through your community colleges or your tribal community colleges. You may look at your Chamber of Commerce locally. But I did want to take a moment and pose to the audience, what ideas and extra resources do you have that you can offer to the rest of the community? So at this point, I'm really going to turn to you guys to become active members and participants in your comments and share additional ideas that may not have been identified. And as we're doing that, certainly taking a moment to pause, to allow individuals to type. Certainly takes a minute. I know as a participant, as I was running through, it took me a few minutes to transcribe a question or a comment that was spelled correctly. So it does look like we have some comments coming in, or certainly questions. We'll make sure John projects this question or comment.
All right, thank you everyone for being patient on the microphone volume. We're trying to figure out the best positioning for this microphone so we can participate all in one room. So I'll start with Suzanne Malson, and she says the Tribal Human Resources often provides training.
Yes.
Moving down, Gail has a couple other things. One is the Small Business Administration, Social Security, and State Transition. She also says the Disability Law Center, and also the State ADA Coordinator. Dodie adds the Developmental Disabilities Division, probably in each one of the states. And we have one more comment coming in.
As that comment is coming in, I did want to mention the Small Business Administration. I know I've had multiple individuals contact me about self-employment and developing that small business plan and how to go about doing that. That's certainly a training area for professional development as we work towards maybe a self-employment outcome. which could be an excellent resource. And personally, I believe an organization, SCORE, is out there that offers free business consultation within theirs. Excellent resources.
Carol adds, we watch for training from other human service agencies such as the Veterans Community Mental Health and disability-specific organizations. Usually these are very focused on a topic or disability.
Great, great. And as we had presented in the first webinar, it really depends on the pathway of your program direction. Where do you, as a program, where are you headed? Where will the staff need training? And then identifying what those resources are. So again, as we kind of review some of those three-factor model approach, taking all those into consideration moving forward, and then connecting to those resources. So excellent information, and we appreciate your participation and sharing of your knowledge and resources. Great. On a new topic and a new question, I did want to note from Tuesday's presentation, Carol Berquist and Mary Maruvia provided excellent comments regarding their process of a professional development plan that they implement, and we will respond to their comments a little bit later. But for now, I wanted to kind of review and point towards the mission and vision statements that we had mentioned previously. I know there was another comment. We can certainly entertain a comment that came in, but as we're doing, maybe we can move to slide 7, John, just in preparation of that.
No problem. We have one last thing from Carol. We also have a small business representative who meets with individuals or small groups. She has also worked with our counselors in helping them do small business plans with the clients.
Yeah, so the ability to bring in individuals, whether independently or through professional consultation, is certainly an option. I think that can be exercised under the scope of the grant. Great. Okay, so we do have slide 7 up there, just as a reference point for you, for some of you who may not have participated. This was one of the slides that we reviewed, mission and vision statements. I had posed some rhetorical questions during that statement, and just let me, reviewing that slide, let me review those. Do you have an AIVRS mission and vision statement? Do you know the vision and mission statement? Here I want to ask, do you have a personal vision and mission statement? To me, this can always be a very profound practice early on as a new employee, or if you are transitioning into a new position, a supervisory position, let's say, from a counselor to a program director, and really taking the time through self-reflection and introspection going forward. And I've gone through this process, and I have posed a question to myself: what is my purpose? What do I want to accomplish? Really, in my professional development plan, do I want to transition back into academics and return to school? Or maybe there won't be an academic approach that I take, and maybe I want to focus on my training and skill development in these areas. So it's really important to take the time to kind of acknowledge some of those practices moving forward, and really where do I stand, because similarly, again, through this IPE approach, informed choice. I have an informed choice, and I'm an active member in my professional development. What do I want to do? Oftentimes, we may wait for others to tell us what we should be doing, and that's certainly mentoring and guidance. But really, where do I stand in this? So that would be part of my challenge to each of you. What is your personal vision and mission statement? Great. I want to also take a chance and switch gears a little bit. We did pose at the end of the webinar on Tuesday a homework question. And so to have some possible discussion around that, the homework was to obtain a copy of your tribal professional development plan and compare that to your tribal form and process in relation to the webinar on Tuesday. Did anybody do their homework? Were you able to provide, identify if you have a professional development plan? And if you did, how does that relate to our discussion? And just some questions for consideration as maybe some responses are coming in. How does staff know what is required of them, and how can they grow within their position? How do you benchmark progress and provide salary increases if you never have a staff evaluation, when there is no professional development plan? And when budget costs are not being utilized, it creates carryover.
We have one current comment, and it is, I believe it's Kayleen under the name Dodie Mackenzie 3, and she just wants to apologize that she was out sick on Tuesday, so she couldn't do her homework, but we hope you feel better.
Please send us your doctor's note. Really, taking a look at Tuesday, we presented the ideal components of a professional development plan, a best practice, if you will, when all these pieces match and fit and we have an excellent professional development plan in place. Oftentimes, that's not the case. And really, I want to kind of propose a bit of a dichotomy today. To say, here we have an excellent professional development plan as a model and an example. And on the other hand, what if we don't have a professional development plan? What could that look like? What could be the impact on the program, on the staff? So really a great time to be able to elicit some responses from the audience. So please, what are your thoughts? How would organization and function of a program look without that mission, vision, leadership, or a written professional development plan for each staff member? What could be those shortcomings that may be experienced going forward?
We have a comment from Carol, and she says, our tribe does not have a plan model for all employees. However, there is a new initiative called TMAC, Tribal Member Advancement Committee, which is more like a career plan for every interested tribal member.
TMAC. Yeah, that would be a good search to look up and see what kind of information comes from there. You know, I want to also maybe lead and guide a little bit as some responses come in. But when some of those are lacking, those professional development or that leadership or that mission and vision, you know, I could anticipate, you know, for a program, there could be limited growth and development within the organization. If there's no process to correct maybe inappropriate performance or behavior, no human resource process, or maybe it's not being adhered to. And really, without that structure and growth, the development process becomes stagnated, you know, and it could be replaced with complacent behavior and chaos. I can put out, for example, if I don't have a plan with objectives and a clear direction and items that I need to address, I may become complacent on the job. And those complacent behaviors nowadays could look like this. Social media. Are we posting? Are we Facebooking? Are we on personal emails? Are we doing work that's outside of work? That can be a default that comes too. And really, when that begins to happen, the impact on the program, the individual, the morale, as well as the services we deliver to the consumers can become impacted. So these are all potential consequences of having a lack or limited professional development plan in place. So I see that we have some comments coming in. We'll give those just a second to finish their thoughts and enter in some information.
First comment is from Michelle Wilson, and she says, we have what is called an individual development plan, which each employee and supervisor sits down and develop goals and objectives, including training, classes, community service, etc. Meeting the goals, objectives set out in the person's IDP results in an extra paycheck for the employee.
Wow, what a great incentive and a recognition of those accomplishments that they've set forth, really dedicating and committing themselves to that process, and fortunately having that incentive at the end is really a great practice. Excellent. I'm glad that's available to you guys, Michelle. Thank you for your comment.
Next comment in line, Suzanne states, the human resources has an evaluation plan used universally, but no professional development plan.
Yeah, and this can often be the case for many organizations. They will institute a annual performance review or an evaluation component that's on there, and really taking a look at how does that meet the HR, human resources responsibility needs that may equal pay or incentive. And then really, as we've heard before, some of the best practices out there are, can we build upon that and include a professional development plan on top of that? I know Mary and Carol had also noted previously, they layer that in combination with each other. So they are building upon their process and also not duplicating work at the same time for that to be meaningful. I can also attest, I believe, in the human resources field, oftentimes they're beginning to shift towards a really performance-based scoring system and measuring performance and outcome through numbers, 1 through 5, let's say, unsatisfactory to exemplary. And really, they began to move towards a professional development model where questions such as, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Or as I like to term it, what are your areas of opportunity? We have an opportunity that we can create education and training to enhance your skill set. Let's take advantage of the opportunities that are out there, and really shifting from this deficits-based model of performance evaluation into this professional development and growth side. So I've heard that within communities, and think it's a good discussion because it really makes it meaningful between the supervisor and the employee as they begin to develop that next stage in their development for the upcoming years. So hopefully you can see these pieces coming together.
Lafley Dodie adds, our human resources offers trainings of interest for tribal employees.
Trainings of interest, I would be curious to, if you can expand on that a little more as far as the interest component looks like. It may be referring to something similarly I'd mentioned before in human resources training, human resources development. There are courses, there are meetings that people can attend, engaging in discussion, teaching communication skills with others, with coworkers, with your supervisor. Something as simple as let's talk. I know that's one that I've been introduced to along the way. So certainly topics of interest. Hopefully they're working with you to identify those as well. I did want to see if John As we're moving through, if I can direct you to maybe slides 25 through 27. I wanted to ask the audience to just take a minute and review the slides as we're going through them, and we'll give them a chance to kind of read through those. And if you do, if there's any notations, but really I wanted to take a look at similarities and differences from our components of a professional development plan to see if this is in line with the programming, you guys that are out there, to see if everybody's got certain components, or maybe they're not, or if there are others that aren't on here, share those with us in the community here going forward. So I'm not going to read through it, but as you're reading 25, maybe 26, kind of like Michelle said, the recognition of accomplishments through incentives or a financial incentive. That could be great.
We have a question out to Michelle from Daryl, and he asks, Michelle, how does your tribe department put in place to assist employees in meeting their goals and objectives, i.e. biannual quarterly reviews? And how successful has the incentive of an extra paycheck worked for meeting professional development goals and objectives? And he also adds, what process?
Yeah, excellent question. I know within the grant structure, there are limitations and certain regulations that we must abide by. So how to develop a similar process, or work with the tribe to develop that process to be able to access some of those pieces outside of the scope that we work under. So yeah, excellent question. Inquiring minds want to know.
Michelle answers, it is set up as part of the salary and benefits.
Oh, excellent.
And adds, so the amount is 6% per employee.
Okay. So within the tribal structure, it allows for that to happen, and certainly working through your budgets to be able to fulfill that, manage to find that pathway. Excellent. And so I know John, 25, 26, 27. Really, there's a good slide right there. I want to hear from you guys. What are some of the key points here? What do you think are aspects that really need to be hit on as we're going through professional development?
Michelle adds also, if they meet all of their goals and objectives, they get the full 6%, or they can get only a percentage of the full amount if they don't meet 100% of the goals and objectives.
We've got a couple questions and comments coming in, just giving them a second. I do want to take a minute as the audience is typing and acknowledge we did start Tuesday's webinar with a poll. And one of our poll questions was, do you have or do you use a professional development plan? Within yes, no, in progress, you informed us, the participants that did respond, 66% did not have a professional development plan.
Michelle adds at the end, as far as success rate, it has been almost 100% in my department.
Wow, excellent results. Good outcome. And you can imagine all the learning that takes place from learning to incorporating that into our skill set, into practice, and how that will impact our work with the consumers, who ultimately is why we're here, to provide them, as we mentioned, with quality VR services.
Deidre adds, not listed, but I think training that is directly related to cultural competency, especially for non-native employees that work for these programs. Deidre, correction, I now see it listed.
Okay, I'm glad we covered that, but you hit on an excellent point where with us as AIVRS program, that's an essential component that we need to include moving forward. And I really want to emphasize the work that AIVRTAC is doing. Hopefully you can see and sense and learn from the materials that are being presented within that. It's so important to incorporate that because we can get trainings through the state, but it may not be specific to our population or to us as Native peoples. Excellent. And there were some positive comments regarding that at the end of last Tuesday. Really blending the two, living in the two worlds concept is very important. So yeah, thank you for that comment.
We have another comment from Carol. We are in a good place here because all 4 Visions staff have VR education credentials. So we can focus on professional development on topics that they want to know more about to better serve our clients. Like last year, TBI, traumatic brain injury, and substance abuse services were our focus. We also have grant dollars to support this training.
Excellent, excellent. In regards to a note that I had made to myself was even in regards to the comment of having the capabilities as an AIVRS department. We've been afforded that opportunity to invest in our own workforce through training and development, and it's an excellent mechanism. So we are fortunate, blessed, and grateful to participate. But I also can acknowledge that the ability to do that, working within tribal organizations, can oftentimes be a challenge. Working within AIVRS, I can kind of hear some comments of, well, why are you guys always traveling? Or I want to go there. Or, well, we don't have the money to do that. So even within departments, that can become an issue. I know within organizations, sometimes they will freeze travel and training, or sometimes they will indicate that only essential travel and training is going to be approved. And so working through the supervisory or fiscal or management departments, they may not approve travel because it may not be essential. Well, what does that mean? I believe us as the AIVRS community and culture, right now we're acknowledging that this is essential. In order for us to grow and deliver quality services and positively impact our communities and meet the grant requirements, performing effectively, it is an essential component. So really within the culture of our own communities, this can be a challenge that we face as well. So I just want to acknowledge that too.
We have a comment from Jeffrey, and he says, I would like to see some methods we could incorporate to overcome background issues, felonies, etc.
Yeah, great comment. I know that can be an issue. I would be curious to maybe expand on that a little more, Jeffrey, in reference to us as providers providing services to consumers to overcoming that barrier and working with them. So I'm kind of hearing a training objective need and how to navigate that barrier towards employment. because a lot of times it is a barrier, having those legal issues, and how to help them overcome that. And to also note through the employee process, even within our own HR, maybe we have qualified individuals who have legal histories that would not permit them to be employed within the organization. So even within our own tribal structure, it can be difficult to overcome, let's say if we were applying for the job as well with a legal history. So certainly we're noting that going forward as a training area.
Suzanne poses a question to Carol and says, Carol, do you meet as a staff or choose topics, or does each staff person choose a topic for individual training? And that's posed to Carol. And Michelle follows up with, we tried setting up an incentive program many years ago when Dick Corbridge suggested it, but we really didn't get any traction until the entire tribe rolled it out.
Yes, good comment, good history. That process played out, and even to implementation. So yes, thank you, Michelle. I think we have some individuals typing. We'll give them also a second, and certainly have some more questions I could pose to the audience, but don't want to overwhelm you guys, because oftentimes the flow of the community of practice, we want to consider that moving forward. Seems like we're in a good flow right now, John, I would say, right? Yep. Yeah, I love the participation. Thank you guys for your comments and questions. You know, also too, along the lines, which is what Michelle was mentioning, sometimes tribes do make the efforts to put processes in place, but oftentimes are those processes adhered to? Staffing turnover, changes in supervisors, the evaluation process may not take place. As we identified on Tuesday, there can be substantial turnover within tribal vocational rehabilitation. And so the time and energies maybe that put into a plan that may not follow through, or changes in HR personnel can always impact, or there could certainly be lapses within that. So in a perfect world, things move very well, but we know that that's not often the case. And unfortunately, when some of those things happen, really can create an environment of maybe breakdown in some of the processes and procedures, and unfortunately can at times lead to a lack of personal and professional development, and kind of indifference. These concepts of being valued and recognized. And sometimes if that doesn't exist, employees can become discontented. They could lack the team spirit moving forward in that energy. And so the work begins to impact it, and maybe we miss deadlines, or we're not attending to those needs. Sometimes it can result in self-esteem issues. Without that lack of progress, motivation, and growth, could lead to not feeling good about ourselves and the work that we're doing. And so even just as a basic concept, reintroducing a job description, as part of this process. Hey, what really am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing that? Or am I not doing that? And then, of course, like we've seen in the end, wages can certainly be impacted as those incentives may not be there. So really taking a look at is your tribe's process, your department's process, But if it's not happening, what happens to your staff? And therefore, you can see some turnover that may exist within your organization.
We have Carol answering Suzanne, and she says, Suzanne, in answer to your question, we look at what skills we need to better address client needs as a staff. But within that, there is individual choice about what they would like to learn. However, my staff has chosen to pursue other topics and have not used their training dollars for K-9. They say too much of the same topics and not cutting edge for what they need on the front line of services.
I hear an excellent opportunity for a staff survey to be sent to AIVRS because we want to identify those cutting edge trainings that's out there. So please, as you can see, hopefully we're beginning to develop this question and response and are very sensitive to your needs here, at least at AIVRS. And that's what we're here to work for. That's our jobs, or the job of AIVRS. Excellent.
Rachel adds, it looks like speaking to Michelle, that's the first I think I've heard of that, Michelle. I would anticipate at this tribe them saying that it isn't fair to other program staff, much like when we had funds for travel and training but had a tribe-wide travel freeze, and the same situation for raises at one time. So this would be okay with RSA for the program alone to do so. And did you have any friction from the tribe when you tried it only as a program?
Excellent interaction amongst. Thank you for your questions, Rachel, and your comments, because that often is a tug of war that we have to move through and navigate to be able to get those results, and really being proactive, at least from Michelle's point of view, to implement that in place. And if we don't have that proactivity and that support, can be a challenge between each other or departments.
I'm going to skip to Michelle's questions, but we'll come right back into the queue. But Michelle writes, we never got any traction as a program alone, as I stated, but when the tribe rolled out the IDP program to all employees, not long after we made the proposal, then we were able to participate, and honestly, they made it way bigger and better than we had initially proposed.
Wow, some great outcome.
And then to move back into the queue, Deidre says, suggestion, a place we can regularly share upcoming trainings as we become aware of them. My experience, when there are quality training opportunities, I find out 2 to 3 weeks before, and that isn't conducive to most schedules. And Rachel says, agreed, Deidre. And continuing to move down, Suzanne says, thank you, Carol, and Rachel says, thank you as well.
It is important to be able to plan and to prep. Oftentimes, things can be done at the last minute. Certainly not a best practice, and not one that would be supported here. And really taking a look at the upcoming ending of the fiscal year, I think we have an opportunity within the next few months where we, or I would say the department, the AIVRS department, really wants to hear what those needs are for the next year, to incorporate other components as we're moving forward. We've certainly have, as we mentioned Tuesday, the RSA annual report survey that includes there where some important information comes out. But this is a rich environment, and this is why we do the community of practice, to open it up to hear your voices, to really support and validate that. Because ultimately, all of these training and education and development opportunities, it's going to affect the consumers. We want to influence them in a positive way through our skill development. And again, that's why we're here. That's why we exist, to serve them along the way. So I just wanted to thank you for those comments, and certainly, again, in wanting to recognize all the comments that were made from Tuesday, we had one from Jeremiah who proposed, will you be sharing any professional development templates on Thursday was the actual question. And kind of from our responses, again, yes, we will. Really want to encourage people to participate on tomorrow, Friday. It will be an excellent time for those resources to come in. Again, I want you guys to send us your professional development plans so we can share that with the community, similarly as Gail did. And we will also be breaking down those specific components of the professional development plan and get somewhat technical on the pieces. Some of the best professional development plans can be very simple. Some of them can have quite a bit in there. So we want to provide you with a wide array of tools that you can use to possibly condense or use that would positively impact your programs. So excellent.
We have a comment from Stephen, and he says, there are only 2 employees in our VR program, my manager and myself. I may not post much, but am learning a lot. The only legal issues are with my clients and quite a barrier to employment for them. Any suggestions as to how I could help them?
At least from here today, I would look to the audience to see if they can add any support and response. I'm being sensitive to the ability for us to be able to maybe outreach with you, Stephen, and maybe provide some one-on-one consultation as well to be able to do some follow-up and maybe get a little more in-depth and kind of do a mini needs assessment as far as those training needs, so we can really, in a more direct way, assess what it is that you'd really be looking for. So I'll put that down, and I know the staff here is taking notes and writing because we really appreciate that one-on-one attention, and really appreciate that you want to engage in that way. And with the staff of 2, great job in all the work that you do, because that can be definitely a challenge in having limited staff available to you. You know, and really the COP and some of the things that I've learned along the way are peer mentorship. So even as a resource myself, working with the Sequan Intertribal Vocational Rehabilitation Program, track my information down, email me. I'd be happy to provide you my personal insights along the way, because that's what helped me when I came on board as a new director. This peer-to-peer mentorship that's out there with individuals who have great knowledge and experience that can be shared. So that was a practice that helped me along the way. And it really helped me be bonded within the community and the culture of AIVRS. So again, this concept of kinship and family and community are all part of what we're trying to accomplish. So I know we'll be coming up on the hour here shortly. Certainly a few moments for questions. I did want to acknowledge some of the other comments. Just Steve Henderson's comment that was made around confidentiality the previous week. Again, Carol and Mary's active participation last week to kind of set some of the stage for today. And again, some of the feedback. Dodie, thank you for your input along the way.
Stephen adds, thanks for reaching out to me. We'll look forward to insights from all.
Great.
I just want to add, I'll be putting the link to the Community of Practice evaluation in the chat pod. You'll also receive this link in a thank you email coming up after the webinar, but we very much appreciate the feedback, and if you can get on there and give us your insights as to what you think about the community of practice.
Yes, feedback is always welcome. We're looking to improve. You know, just kind of as we're typing and just prior to wrapping up, I I did want to acknowledge, I appreciate everybody's participation in the polls that we put out last week. And just as a presenter, I like the interaction and the engagement and really support that as a tool within the webinars. So if that's something you'd like to see, certainly let us know. And also just acknowledging your responses. That's important data. That's important information for us to take back regarding professional development plan. And also acknowledging the other poll question. Does professional development only occur in the context of attaining or maintaining a degree or professional certification as defined? And I know it was very interesting, the comments that were made or the results that were made around that, with a substantial number of individuals saying no, it doesn't just occur within the context of degrees and credentials. I know we're running out of time today, but more food for thought. What would it be that goes into that? Why did you respond the way you responded? And what are those insights that come into there? I can certainly attest to myself stating that culture is part of that. It may be a certification academic pathway, but what are those other natural pathways where we need to grow and develop in that may be outside the scope of an academic program that would benefit us, that would benefit our programs. And I think those comments that were made today, really on the cultural piece that was identified as we were going through, to say, yes, I really like that incorporation of the cultural piece that we're taking, because that is an essential component for professional development within the AIVRS community.
Dodie adds, when working with clients with legal issues, I make sure I know the extent of the issues and work as a team with the client's other providers and possibly their probation officers to determine where they can work. Rachel asked if we could post the recording for Tuesday's YouTube, and I put that underneath there, and then she also replied, thank you. And Carol finally says, would love to see a model PD plan for AIVRS program staff.
Excellent. In the development of this, I think that's one of the tasks that we're going to need to take a look at, the we meaning AIVRTAC. Tomorrow, we will review various programs, professional development plans, and we will get to some of that. But I think an overarching goal is to take that and really develop exactly what you've said, Carol, so that way we can have that available for the programs out there that exist. So thanks for making us work. I know we're winding down here. We've just got within the next minute, so feel free to share your comments, but we welcome your participation tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel?
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for participating today.
Yep, and the same link will get you into the webinar tomorrow. Carol says, Megwetch, see you tomorrow. And Stephen states, getting more excited about my job due to these webinars. Thanks. Dodie McKenzie 2 says, VR is never boring.
You know what? Also, too, I may add something that helps us with the programs. If you have more than one participant on the webinar, but you're only viewing it maybe at one computer, let us know how many individuals. We're going to stay open for just a few more minutes, but let us know how many people are in attendance at your specific program. Part of our performance outcomes are the number of participants that are here. So if you have more than one, just type your number in. If they haven't registered separately, that would help us tremendously. Thank you.
Suzanne says thank you. Dodie 2 says 3. Jeffrey Muse says just me. Jeremiah says 5. Stephen is by himself, just one Stephen.
You're not alone, Stephen. You're not alone.
William Merchant Marchant says 2.
So thank you, and out of honor and respect your time, we'll be going webinar dark. Thank you.